Morning to you. Hello. Today is Monday, the 15th of December 2025, and this is pAIperTrail.com, a daily streaming all about governance, risk, and compliance in the UK for SME and mid-market firms. And today, I want to ground this entire week in facts, not opinions, because if UK compliance feels impossible before you even start, there is a reason for that. And let's explore the three most common problems for that. Number one, a typical UK SME or mid-market firm can be affected by 25 to 40 different compliance frameworks when all of them are combined. So you have the universal frameworks, the conditional frameworks, and the commercial frameworks, and the strategic requirements. And all these are published by regulators such as Information Commissioner's Office, the Health and Safety Executive, the Financial Conduct Authority, and many others you can check on the gov.uk webpage. So, and just in case you're wondering what universal frameworks are, they are the mandatory ones, whether you like it or not, like GDPR. Conditionals are those frameworks that are in scope for your company, like the Drivers and Vehicle Standards Agency, if you are managing fleet or commercial vehicles. And the commercial frameworks are those related to certificates, like ISO or ESG or SRS. Problem number two is that taking at face value, those frameworks span between 8,500 to 16,000 pages of guidance. So those are spelling out around 5,500 individual obligations before any conciliation applies, right? Before you reconcile what you have to do or you don't have to do, you are facing around 5,500 obligations. And the third problem is that most businesses start by opening frameworks one by one, which means they experience the full and consolidated weight of the system on day one. So just to picture this in a metaphor, imagine that you are driving a car or you want to drive a car. But then before you drive in a car, the regulators say, this is a motorway code, this is a construction rules of a car, and these are the insurance law. So even before you drive the car, let's put all this together so you understand what are your obligations, what you're required to do, and then you can start to drive your car or your van or your truck. And you might think, well, that way I will never manage to get that up and running. So you go and right away, probably today you're doing that, and trusting that you're going to comply at one point in time with all these things, given that no inspection reports or notice come to your door. So to avoid this, here are 3 points to consider before you feel that compliance is impossible to dominate. Number one, regulators do not expect firms to memorize frameworks. They expect firms to understand whether a duty applies based on the size, sector, activity, and risk. And I'm going to explain this later on. Number two, the UK, for example, UK GDPR under the Information Commissioner's Office, or the health and safety duties under the Health and Safety Executive, and company law obligations on the gov.uk webpage, all rely on scope test to determine applicability, right? And I mentioned only three here, but imagine that there are many others, like there are 25 to 40 of regulations that you have to comply with if you are in scope. So that's why the scope test exists, to determine if it's applicable or not to your organization. But solution number three, avoid this trap. When scope is not determined first, businesses default to do everything, which creates an overload of information before any real compliance works begins. Probably you will say, well, we've been in business for many years, so we are fine. We have our scoping, we have our paperwork organized, etc. But be careful because there are updates and new amendments, etc. So you have to keep up to date, even if you have that already kind of sorted out. So You can see there is levels of complexity here, particularly in SME and mid-market companies, where there are no dedicated teams, officials, or personnel within the company to run these compliance requirements. And we mentioned that we have those that are universal, around 9 of them. You like it or not, you have to comply with them. Then you have those that they are industry specific or in scope, and then you have the strategic or commercial ones that start to build up. And at one point or the other in your commercial life, you're going to find that actually you have to look into any of those. So there is no wonder that 73% of UK companies outsource and hire consultants or advisors or delegate to contractors their obligations. So what you should be looking for when you're doing outsourcing these kind of things. So is, as I always mention in these live streams, that you and your company should have a compliance baseline, or at least a baseline in mind, so you can hire on your own terms. So these are 3 suggestions when outsourcing, particularly when you want to establish which of those 5,500 obligations are required from you or your organization. Number 1, what is the outcome that these advisors, consultants, or contractors or delegation to contracts offer to you as a responsible for the organization or to your organization itself? Do they start where the regulators start? So I think that you can ask this question. Say, this is where the regulators start to look when inspecting or requiring in terms of compliance. So this should be a structured business profile, not a generic checklist, right? This is my company, this is my business profile, where the regulations start for me. Number 2, how they differentiate. So if they start with your business profile, that profile is used to deterministically identify which UK frameworks apply and why, with a logical procedure related to your company, right? So you want to make sure that actually these are all the frameworks in existence, and this is your business profile. So then you have your controls, meaning actually this is the things I apply. I need to produce evidence because all the way up they will be required when the inspections, audits, or notice come through. And number 3, how they reduce the risks for you and your company. Do they structure in a way that only after applicability is clear, all obligations are consolidated in a single manageable set, so replacing thousands of disconnected requirements that you don't need to comply with. So one action you can take today to test this is, before opening any frameworks, write down your company size, sector where you operate, and whether you handle personal data, payment, particularly online payments, or physical risks. Then check which frameworks you are required to comply with. If you cannot do this in 30 minutes or less, I would say you may need to consider another solution, something that is much faster, that is more reliable, and easier to do. And that's why we build our software from the ground up, which is called pAIperTrail. If you want to see how one business profile replaces dozens of frameworks, join the pAIperTrail waitlist, and we'll show you how. And all your risk and your analysis and your controls and evidence will sit in one place, so you can stop activities that increase workload but add no value to your team, to your people, to your organization, and increase your costs and labor hours and expenses in just redundant work. And pAIperTrail is perfect for UK SMEs and mid-market firms because you use the same control library for health and safety, GDPR, DVCA, Service Essentials, CPR, you mentioned all of them. So there's no double entry. That's reducing your overlap by 60% and your cost by 80%, and builds a compliance culture, which is a supportive culture for your business and your teams, instead of a culture of panic, stress, tension, etc., etc. So it's all in one place. It's a continuous gap analysis. It's a clear view of what's done, what is missing, and who owns or who is accountable, who is responsible to do things before assurances, inspections, reports, or audits hits you, right? So you can do it once, you can do it properly, and then move on to things that are more important to you, which is grow your company, your department, and be more profitable. So join the waitlist, pAIperTrail.com, and stay tuned, because today we've seen the scale of UK compliance, yes, like 8,500 to 16,000 pages of guidance, 5,500 obligations, frameworks by framework, overwhelms firms before they begin to do compliance. And tomorrow I'll show you why even after you start, the work multiplies, and why up to 70% of what UK businesses do is duplicated by design, believe it or not. So have a great day.